In this presentation, we will continue on taking a look at company preferences, this time concentrating in on the preferences related to payroll and employees within QuickBooks Pro 2020, QuickBooks Desktop 2020. Here we are in Get Great Guitars file. We're going to go to the edit screen and hit the drop down and scroll on down to the preferences at the very bottom. Last time we were taking a look at the items and inventory. We're going to go down to the payroll items here. We'll take a quick look at the items in between, including jobs and estimates. Nothing in the My Preferences tab. In the company preferences, items relating to jobs and estimates. Now, we're going to keep the default settings here. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the jobs and estimates. These are typically things that are going to be used in an industry-specific type of way. For example, if we are in a construction type of process, then we're more likely to have jobs and estimates. So this is kind of more of a specialized type of area. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. We may spend a little bit more time on it at a later time as we concentrate specifically in those areas. Then we're going to go to the multiple currencies, track multiple currencies in this company file. We won't be tracking multiple currencies. We'll be using just simply the one currency within this file. If you do have multiple currencies, it does increase the complications with the process a lot. So just make sure that you do your research on the multiple currencies. Otherwise, we'll have the one currency here. Then in the My Preferences, nothing within the My Preferences. Within the Payments tab then, Payments, next section, nothing within My Preferences. Within the company preferences, we will be keeping the default settings of, within the receive payments, we have the automatically apply payments. So if we're applying them to something, the payments that we have received, say to an invoice or something like that, it'll help us to apply that process out automatically. Automatically calculate payments. So if we're going to enter data and there's a column of data, it'll help us to automatically calculate the data. Use undeposited funds as a default deposit to account. Now, this is one that can cause people confusions. It's a logical format to put together, but if it confuses you, if it's making things more complicated, you may go up and uncheck this item to use the undeposited funds. Undeposited funds, necessary step in many ways. We'll talk about it in more depth as we start to enter the process. We will be using the undeposited funds. We'll also discuss about times when you may not want to use it, and simplify the process in some ways and the problems it can cause and the benefits it might cause. But just note that that's where that default setting will be. Then we have the online payments. Your customers can pay you online using credit card or bank transfer. We're not going to be taking a look at the online type payments now. We may go into those in more detail at a later presentation to concentrate on them specifically. Tip: to make payment methods active or inactive, go to the Lists menu, click Customer and Vendor Profile Lists, and then click Payment Method Lists. Then we have the payment reminders. Do you want to send payment reminders? And typically, if we want the payment reminders, we will keep the default. Then we have, if QuickBooks Desktop is open, prompt me at, and then it'll have the prompt information. We'll keep the default there as well. Then we're going to go to the payroll and employees on the left side, payroll and employees. Two tabs here, My Preferences, nothing in it. Company Preferences then. QuickBooks Desktop payroll features. So we have the payroll features. We're going to keep it at the full payroll. So we have the full payroll. If you don't have any payroll, you can go to the no payroll, but we're still going to have to set it up. Remember that we didn't actually purchase any of the payroll items. So we're going to basically have the full payroll so we can look at it, and then we will be taking a look at the manual payroll, which is an option here. Great tool for learning the process. So also, but just note, if you have employees, it's not typically enough just simply to turn the payroll on here. You would then have to either purchase the payroll or set up the manual payroll. We'll talk about that more as we get to that point in our presentation. So then we have the defaults down below. Copy earnings detail from previous paycheck. We have the unchecked as the default. Recall quantity field on paychecks. This is often useful to have. We'll keep the default. Job costing and item tracking for paycheck expenses. So if we have paycheck expenses, in other words, we can use them to help us to track the job costs as we make jobs, basically billing clients as well. So we'll keep that checked, and you might as well, because we'll still have to to set it up when we actually go through the process. So we'll discuss that in a bit as we go through actually entering data. Recall our field on paychecks. So we'll keep that as the default. And then down below, changing the employee's name display preference will cause all QuickBooks Desktop windows to close. Please finish paying your employees before you do this. So we have the display list. We can have the first name or the last name, what's going to be our preference in terms of the display, and you can test them, but make sure that as you do so, you have the payroll process before you do so. And then you can go to the employee defaults here. Mark new employees as sales reps. So if that's going to be applicable to you, you have the default here is going to be no. So we're just going to keep that. Display employee social security numbers in headers on report. So if that's something you would like, you can check that item off. Again, we'll talk more about actually recording day payroll, entering employees at a later point when we start to process through the problem here. We're just going to go to OK up above, and then we'll keep moving on next time.